Can you give me a brief overview of where they were going and where they were trying to get to and the purpose of the trip?
Okay, so the Donner Party, and sometimes it's called the Donner Reed Party because there were several families involved. It just wasn't the Donner family, it was several families, but Donner is kind of the big name associated with the story. They started off in Illinois. They wanted the dream of settling in the Oregon Territory, which is, of course, California. So they had to go all the way from Illinois, cross the Rocky Mountains, cross the Sierra Nevada, and get into California before the winter snows hit. And this was a journey that took between 4 and 6 months. Women, children, men, oxen, wagons over wagon trails. Some weren't very established, which was part of the problem here. And a normal trip like that took 4 to 6 months and about 15 miles a day. So they were kind of crawling across America in sometimes uncharted and very hostile territory as well. So there's a lot of danger involved in the trip too.
So you're in Reno. You're kind of an expert as far as the weather locally there. They made it as far as your area late October. So right about this time of year.
Yeah.
What went wrong? What happened at that point?
So there were a number of things that went wrong, and the whole trip kind of went wrong. They had so many hardships. They had basically literally people fighting. There were men fighting in the group, disagreements on which route to take. They decided to take a route called the Hastings Cutoff, which was supposed to cut off time. Instead, it added 18 days to their journey. It was very hard crossing the desert there of Utah. They got to the border of Utah and Nevada, and they rested for 5 days. They were exhausted. Everybody was exhausted, including the animals too. They just really couldn't go on. So they lost 18 days taking that shortcut. They lost another 5 days resting. Then they crossed hostile territory, which was northern Nevada, and they made it here to the Truckee Meadows. Reno wasn't here yet. Sparks wasn't here. And they rested for a few days. By that point, the group was fractured. They had 3 or 4 different families, just kind of basically doing the trip almost on their own at that point because of all the infighting with the group. But it was that last break here for several days in late October in the Truckee Meadows. They wanted to rest up before they pushed over the Sierra Nevada. And they were told that the snow wouldn't start until mid-November. And I mean, given the year, that can be true and that can be false. This is the time of the year where the weather patterns change up. And they gambled a little bit that the snow wouldn't happen until mid-November and they'd be up and over the pass. And they got so close within about 3 miles of the summit. And then the huge snow started to come down. And we're talking feet and feet of snow. So here the Donner Party is crossing the first few days of November. Typically, they should be okay. But that particular year, the storm door opened up extra early. And it wasn't just one round of snow, it was round after round after round. So they got about 20 storms, 10 of those being major. And around Donner Lake, where they got trapped, which was then Truckee Lake, now, of course, renamed Donner Lake, there was about 25 feet of snow. So you can't move. And people say, well, why don't they just go back down to the Truckee Meadows? Number one, it was hostile territory. They had scampered across northern Nevada to try and get up into the mountains to safety. So there was that. And then number two, when they tried to do it, they just couldn't move backwards. They were at 6,000 feet elevation, and there was piles of snow behind them, piles of snow in front of them, and they were just literally trapped. They just could not move anywhere.
That's when things got really dark, right?
That's when, of course, they're running out of food and, reports of cannibalism. They were boiling their shoes, eating straps of leather from the oxen. Of course, they ate the oxen too. They ate everything they could. And game was scarce. When you have 20 or 30 feet of snow on the ground, it's not like deer are just running around where you can just hunt. They're just not, there is no game. The bears are hibernating. They're in their dens. The deer aren't running around in 30 feet of snow. So what are you hunting? There's nothing to hunt. There's nothing to eat. There were a lot of children, a lot of young children on this trip too, who were starving. So they were doing everything they could to try and kind of get through that winter. And it wasn't until February where the first rescue party started bringing them supplies. Here in 1846 to 1847, that winter, it came just a little bit early and it was powerful.
So it's amazing. I mean, some of them did make it out to tell the tale. There were some survivors that
Not
made it to the
everybody died.
destination.
And again, the rescue party did come and they did. I mean, they were eating everything they could just to kind of buy time. The stats on it were 91 people started in Illinois. By the time they actually ascended the mountain, some folks had died and some folks had left the party. So it was 81 people that actually went up the hill trying to get over what is now called Donner Pass. 45 survived and 36 lost their lives. Donner himself had cut his hand, and that had turned gangrene and infected, and he lost his life basically from that, I think, before he even starved. I mean, what basically did the men was that Hastings cutoff. 18 days they lost there, another 5 trying to rest up from that, additional days resting here, and that really cost them their lives. Had they not taken the shortcut, they would have made it. Once that atmospheric river starts, and unfortunately for them, it didn't really stop that particular winter, it just kept on going. You get the southwesterly winds, and the winds actually push the snow up and over the crest and dump it on the leeward, or in this case, the eastern side of the Sierra Crest. And so the winds just drift that snow up, and it could have drifted up to 30 feet around where they were too. Think of the Donner Party with oxen and women and children and men and covered wagons on rocky dirt trails, no plows, no nothing, running out of food in the elements. It's just crazy to think that even 45 people survive that. That's really the amazing part, that 45 people actually survive that.